Hi, everybody. Welcome to the last post-game show of the season. I'm your host, Mr. Moophead. Brian is joining me, and after another loss, and for every reason that the head coach should be fired, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that Haslam is comfortable with this. I want to point out something so that I want to clarify. To put this on Baker Mayfield is the wrong thing to do. I saw countless plays, whether it was Greg Robinson letting pass rushers go, guys standing around, going 2-on-1 and letting a guy go right by them to hit Baker Mayfield, whether it is Odell Beckham on a pass that was intercepted, not trying to tackle or even go after the guy, but literally running into the block of the guy intentionally so he was taken out of the play. Watching Odell Beckham taking himself out of the football game when he got his 1,000 yards so that he could get an ovation from his teammates, but doesn't give a shit about the team. Watching Jarvis Landry tiptoeing through the tulips and not running out his pattern so badly that the announcers called him out for it. If you're going to blame the quarterback, he's got to have guys who are running patterns in the right place and at full speed. Jake is now joining us as well. Everyone's going to have predictions of this nature, who's going to get sacked and why. But the fact of the matter is, I don't put this at Baker Mayfield's feet. I think Baker wants to win, but I think he's playing with a number of players who don't want to win. And if you didn't believe me at halftime, you believe me about Sheldon Redwine now. The guy can't play at this level. He was literally run over twice by Mixon. He's a waste of time. He's a lousy pass coverage guy, another wasted pick. So, and again, if the general manager doesn't step in and do something, then get rid of him too. Then it's Jimmy's team, fine. But it's really, Tiffany, it's obvious nobody wants to play for Kitchens, but it's at a point now where they don't want to play in Cleveland, and you're going to see mass exodus. People don't want to play here anymore. They're sick of the promises. They're sick of the changes. They're just sick of everything, and they're just not trying. So, this is a difficult job, but it's an impossible job with Jimmy Haslam there. I think that as long as Haslam's in the picture with his meddling, he's only going to hire a guy who does his bidding, and his bidding is losing, and that's exactly right. Jarvis Landry was on his knees like a prostitute, getting out of the way of a play while the ball was intercepted. He's not where he's supposed to be on the field. We saw another near interception where Landry stopped running over the middle of the field. The only plays that Landry would try it on was the one that was a streak down the middle of the field because he didn't want to go over the middle because he didn't want to get hit. Let's be honest about this once and for all. Every time, there was a ball that hit the linebacker Cincinnati in the chest and he dropped it. But Landry was supposed to cut in, and instead he just stopped the pattern. What is Baker Mayfield supposed to do in this situation?
Well, and he only scored that touchdown because the two Bengals knocked each other off of his back.
Well, but at least
he would have been tackled at the 3-yard line.
But at least he ran the pattern correctly because he was running straight down the field and there would be no contact. And I think it's obvious that people were just avoiding contact. And the offensive line wasn't trying at all. And it's just give up time. So everybody gave up, and anybody who watched the game knows before this, I had a lot of respect for Landry. I don't anymore. Get rid of him. Bye-bye. because he may have been hurt, and I get that he's injured, but then don't play. Then don't play, because if you're going to go out on the field and hang up your quarterback that way, don't play. You're making the team worse. You're making everybody around you worse. You know, it's what's up, Jake?
I heavily fear that at this point, Kitchens is Haslam's guy. If they don't play for Kitchens, Haslam might hold that grudge, or that he already does hold that grudge. So people are going out of this situation quick, just because Haslam didn't get his way.
Yeah, and I agree with Robert. I think that, a lot of these guys aren't going to be on the Cleveland Browns next year, and they want to play someplace where they're actually playing NFL football. So they're not going to get themselves beat up and ripped up in a meaningless game like this. And it's unfortunate. Cincinnati tried to give it back to us. You know, they tried. They're a horrible football team. We're the worst football team in the league right now because we don't try. And what's to say except, it'll be the same thing next year and the year after and the year after. It'll take 3 years to get rid of Freddie Kitchens, and the organization will be decimated again. That's what happens to the Cleveland Browns. It's what always will happen to the Cleveland Browns. There's no chance of a turnaround as long as the owner puts a puppet in who is his guy that he can control. And I think that what you will find is the ignorant Southerner was just kowtowing to the other ignorant Southerner. And when you got two, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, dumb Southerners, that's what you wind up with. Exactly what we've watched for the last 17 weeks. It's,
Hug and Roscoe.
Yeah. And again, Baker, what is he supposed to do? What is he supposed to do? When he breaks containment, the receivers stop running. You can see it. Watch the game, man. I mean, nobody's breaking. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jake.
You have to find the edge, find the sideline, cut back for your quarterback.
Right. And they're not doing it.
I'm not saying he played great, but they were not helping him out when he tried to break containment.
That's right.
He could have played much better. Or not even trying to help him today.
And they're not setting down at the seams of zone defenses. They're running the wrong patterns. They're dropping passes. There's nothing good to be said about the way the whole team's being run. And the quarterback gets all the credit. The quarterback gets all the blame. But if you're running for your life from 300-pound guys and you held up all year for 16 games and you're still trying to win a football game, you're trying to prolong a play, and everybody stands there and looks at you and nobody comes back to you, then you end up throwing too many hospital balls, because where else are you supposed to throw it? Where your receivers are standing there. And that's why it always looks like Landry's just standing there, because that's what he's doing. He's not moving. Nobody's helping out Baker Mayfield. Maybe Baker's on Freddie's side and the team's trying to get Baker hurt. I don't know what the team is up to, and I don't know what the story is, but they're not helping their quarterback, not one iota. It's really pathetic. It's just pathetic. So, that's how the season began, and that's how the season ended. Apt bookcase, bookends to a really miserable year. And it's not going to get any better because there's going to be turnover. We have no offensive line depth. So, let's be honest, you got to draft offensive linemen. You got to draft defensive linemen, because Vernon and Richardson are just statues who are injured all the time. And there's nobody below them who can play. There's nobody who proved that they could play. Ogunjobi can play a little bit, but there's nobody else on that field that you're going to ever see. Guys like Gustin and people like this, you're never going to see them again. So you have to draft offensive linemen to protect your quarterback, assuming that you get a new offensive coordinator and head coach so that they actually are running a salvageable offense. You need an offensive line to protect the quarterback And you will then need, defensive linemen to stop the running game, which we never do for, since the Browns came back into the league 20 years ago, have never been able to stop the running game, not even against the Cincinnati Bengals. So then you are thin in the secondary position. The fact that Demarius Randall's gone because he stopped trying. Sheldon Redwine's gone because he can't play football. Greedy Williams has to be salvaged because he's a draft pick. Denzel Ward will be there. But realistically, you didn't have a safety coming into the season, and you just had an ex-cornerback who slowed down, and you call him a safety. So you need a safety. But there's more that you need than that, because you got to replace Odell Beckham, who's goodbye Odell. Stupid fucker, gone. I don't want to see these players. I don't want to see them anymore. And I don't think any fan in Cleveland wants to see these people anymore. So that's kind of what it is. Let's see what Daniel's saying. Locke, Canfora, and Lombardi are usually right when it comes to the Browns. It speaks volumes that the Cleveland reporters have no insider info, but the national reporters do. Well, what did Locke, Canfora, and Lombardi actually say? I don't know what the reference is.
Oh yeah, they're always on the Pat McAfee show, especially Lombardi, and he has so much fun mocking the Browns management. He has a right to do so at this point. He said Dorsey pretty much sits back and lets it happen and is trying to hide from blame, and he's letting the other guys ruin the franchise and the talent they have right now.
Well, and what
he was fired by Cleveland, so he's probably very mad. He does not like the Colts. Doesn't like Cleveland, period. But he was fired by Cleveland, so I don't know what unbiased he could have there. So.
Yeah, and I agree with Brown's gratification. Schobert will be gone too. You do need linebackers. Mac Wilson didn't show me a whole hell of a lot. He didn't show me very much, really. I mean, he showed me that he took, just like in college, he was accused of taking wrong routes toward things. And I saw a lot of that. But Steve Wilkes won't be back. I mean, the horrible, deplorable defensive coordinator. Horrible, deplorable, disgusting. He can't motivate people. He's gone. So, I mean, look at all the turnover the team's going to have. And you don't have the draft picks to cover it. This team is a 3-13 team next year for whoever comes in. Because they got to get rid of the bad apples, and then the rest of it, there's so much non-NFL talent on the roster. What does it tell you when Dearness Johnson returns kicks better than Dontrell Hilliard? What does it tell you that it takes until
made the wrong decision?
Yeah,
entire season.
The guy actually found some holes. He's not a speedster, but he actually found lanes to run through. Hilliard runs up to the 16-yard line and cowers like in the fetal position. So, there's so many guys who aren't even going to be on the team. Njoku won't be on the team next year. Bye.
And neither will Higgins.
No, Higgins is gone too. So you need wide receivers too. So, I mean, and this notion here, Baker Mayfield got Njoku hurt. You go up for a ball and you get your legs cut out from under you. The ball could have been more accurately thrown. But, Baker Mayfield didn't injure David Njoku, and David Njoku decided he didn't want surgery. He wanted to sit around for a couple of weeks, and by the time he decided to get the surgery and came back, he was rusty, and then he got in the doghouse of the coach because I think the organization was pissed that he didn't get the surgery in the first place. So the second he made a mistake, which was actually a mistake by the officials because it was not an interception, he was on his back and down when the ball was taken away from him. They had it with him. They used that. Freddie Kitchens used that to yell and scream publicly at him. So the team was already down on Njoku long before that play. Long before.
And the one guy I think Baker did really hang it to dry was Seals Jones a few weeks ago with the helmet-to-helmet double coverage on that late in the Miami game.
Right.
That's the one receiver he really probably injured this year. But, yeah, that was a jump ball, and that was a 50-50 ball that, well, don't fall on your hands, right?
Well,
don't
if
fall on
Freddie,
your hands.
if Freddie comes back, he will call the offensive plays because that's Jimmy Haslam calling the offensive plays. I mean, let's be honest about it. He's never going to give up the responsibility. Monken will be gone. The offense will be gone. And it will be offense number 4 for Baker Mayfield in 4 years. And so it goes. Or is it number 3 in 3 years? Yeah, whatever.
And Mayfield still won't have a quarterback coach worth of
Right. Right.
So, he's going to keep regressing backwards. They're going to trade fucking Nick Chubb at the end of next season for a box of fucking peanuts to a contender. They'll get a 5th or a 6th round pick for him. And, he'll go out and run for 1,800 fucking yards for him.
And I think that there's a lot of reason to believe that, let me tell you something about team captains. Coaches make team captains. In other words, coaches realize what players have the ear of their teammates, okay? They feel the heartbeat of the locker room and who are the voices that get listened to. And this coach has no idea. There's no team leadership whatsoever. Nobody on the defensive side of the ball, nobody on the defensive side of the ball was a team leader. The veterans, Sheldon Richardson, Olivier Vernon, no. Myles Garrett, no. None of them. There's not a single guy who stood up to be the voice of the defense to tell these guys to start putting out effort. There was no Ray Lewis. There was no Singletary. There's no guy who had the ear of anyone because it was a rudderless ship. The coach didn't identify these people, and nobody stepped up. They all gotta go. Because if nobody even steps up, what good is it? Then you got a bunch of people who just don't care.
And a big concern is what happens next year when, say, if they bring everyone back, which honestly, I don't know who wants the receivers for the Browns right now, so we're probably going to be stuck with them unless we cut them because no one's going to take their contracts on. Baker supported the coach. I mean, what do? You just don't listen to your coach, right? The other part of the team quit on the coach. How will the team receive Baker when Baker was kind of defending Kitchens and picked Kitchens? The culture is kind of broken now, right?
Well, I mean, it's a bad position to be in when, it's a lot like North Dallas 40, a movie I cite often about professional football. The end of the movie, when Nick Nolte's character, Phil Elliott, turns to Seth, the quarterback, played by Mac Davis, and said, "You know everything, don't you?" And he goes, "That I do, Poot, that I do." The guy who's inside and is the buddy of ownership, you can't get around him. And in that story, Phil Elliott and Seth were smoking pot together at a party, but somehow only Phil Elliott's character, Nick Nolte, was cited by the team for smoking pot when it was in pure easy vision that the quarterback was doing it. You see, the problem here is that if you're Baker Mayfield, what do you support when you know that the owner is got the back of the head coach, no matter how stupid, ignorant, and inbred he is? What do you do?
And he can't trash the coach. He can't do it. When his teammates get trashed by the coach, he can't publicly trash the coach, or it's a bigger mess.
You would have seen Garrett Gilbert if Baker Mayfield stepped up to the microphone and said, I don't know where in the hell these plays are coming from. He would have been benched like all the other guys who spoke out or who through action said, no, I'm not putting up with this shit. So again, and Sancho Mack can't get rid of the owner, so Dorsey is next. In a perfect world, Jimmy Haslam gets AIDS and dies, or he gets Ebola and bleeds from the eyes and dies. That's the best case scenario for the team, but that's not going to happen.
Actually, to me,
goes to jail with what he did.
To me, the best scenario would be if the team, he actually decided to give a shit and sold the team back to the city of Cleveland. That would be the ideal situation.
Yeah, I mean, to me,
Green Bay.
Then we'd have the same situation as the Green Bay Packers. We don't have an actual owner. We just elect a team president and a GM.
Now, as far as Dorsey, yeah, you can deflect blame anywhere you want to deflect it, because you can take a look at some players. You can take a look at the lineman, number 33 pick who was blown. You can take a look at some of the guys who really didn't turn out to be. I'm not going to say that Mac Wilson was even expected to be an every down player, but you should have known by now that Christian Kirksey can't even lift a feather without hurting himself. So that's obvious. He's never going to play many games in the NFL unless he leaves Cleveland. Then he'll play all 16 and have an all-star, all-pro year. But in Cleveland, no. He's going to play 4 games. It'll be hurt, and that'll be the end of it. So Mac Wilson's forced to play more downs. He's not ready to play in the league. It'll tell you what they thought of Takataki. It's like takey him away, that he couldn't get on the field any more than he did. He must be worse in the eyes of the organization than Mac Wilson is. And you saw Greedy Williams run the wrong way again. It's like, I don't understand how you let a guy, when you're standing there 7 yards off of him, just easily get to the sideline when you're turning in toward the middle of the field. I don't know what kind of coverage that is. I don't know what kind of technique that is. I don't know who teaches that. It's a total lack of effort. It's a total lack of ability, a total lack of skill. It is totally the reason I told the Derek Frisbee that I didn't think the guy's worth a first-round pick. I don't even know if he's worth a second-round pick. He might drop to the third, because I was hearing a lot of bad things about Greedy Williams, namely that he was interested in making the big play, but wasn't interested in the nuts and bolts plays that make a good cornerback a good cornerback. And that's what we've seen this year. He doesn't tackle particularly well, but more specifically, he is not in the right position because he takes his eyes off people and he's looking to make big plays rather than making sound plays. So, I don't know what to make of that. The Dolphins beat the Patriots. Well, I mean, Robert Kraft probably beat himself off. What can I tell you? And again, this is it. He's going to be on his 4th head coach in his 3rd year, if you count the interim head coach last year. And again, Baker Mayfield may blossom, but it won't be in Cleveland under these circumstances. We're quarterback killers. We're absolute quarterback killers. He's not as great as he appeared to be last year, and he ain't as bad as what he appeared to be this year. I want him to have an offense that the players around him know what they're doing. But maybe I'm just asking for too much. I don't know. Faker Manziel. I don't know what that means. The defense is soft. I'll agree with that. Kitchens is horrendous, but I don't think there's any similarity between Johnny Manziel and Baker Mayfield, quite honestly. One has an arm and the other doesn't. I mean, I don't see a comparison. The rebuilding of the team, Kawaki, is too much to accomplish in one season. We said this last year. I thought that our offensive line was shored up. But then, sure enough, we end up trading Zeitler, and we end up getting this idiot Beckham, who just is bad news, just a head case. And then you plop in the number 33 pick, and he is a guy who couldn't even play any position, let alone the left tackle position. And that forces you to go back to Greg Robinson, who the team really didn't have confidence in prior to the season because they only wanted to sign him to a one-year show-me deal. And he showed us all right that he's incapable of playing left tackle. And then we have, Chris Hubbard out there, and he doesn't have a clue. And, you can't overcome these things. The blocking assignments are fucked up. They're not, and the guys they're not good. If you had a good offensive line, at least with Chubb and Kareem Hunt, you could control time of possession and allow Baker not to throw what was referred to earlier as hospital balls. You at least have a cogent offense that can move the flags and run the clocks, and you get to marginalize mistakes. And then if you actually have wide receivers who run their patterns the way they're supposed to and run them at full speed, you could actually make plays down the field. But I would say 50% of the time, the receivers are giving away the offense because they're trotting through their patterns because they're simply not the primary, secondary, or tertiary guy. You can always tell they're not going to go to Beckham or Landry when they're just trotting. The defense knows that, just shifts away. Why do you think it appears that Beckham is open so many times? They've shifted away from him. The play, the greatest example, there was a play in which, Baker was flushed to the right and all of his receivers were on the left side of the field. So there was nowhere for him to throw the ball unless he was going to throw it back across the field for a pick six. Now, that can't happen. You can't have a play design where a quarterback has no check down. It's impossible in today's NFL, except for a dumb fuck inbred Southerner like Freddie Kitchens. I mean, that's what I can tell you. The receiver's just not going after it at all. And not only are they not coming back to him when he breaks containment, they're not even running. You know what it's like? It's like trying to run a fake, and the fake is so obvious. It would be like running a wishbone offense, and the guy who's not getting the pitch just decides to trot in the opposite direction. I'm not going to get it, so fuck it, because I'm not going to throw a block. That's for damn sure. Quarterback gets crushed. If the players aren't trying, if the receivers are, the whole thing about everybody's a live body on a football field. If Baker Mayfield breaks containment and you're Odell Beckham tiptoeing through the tulips on the left side of a right-sided dominant play, you still are a live body. And if Baker keeps the play alive, you are in one-on-one coverage and you're still a possible, go-to guy. But not if your back's turned and you're just trotting. Never going to see it happen. There is no rebuild of this. It's decimated. There is nothing you can do. And everybody wants to say this type of thing or, this type of thing, or I'm trying to figure that out too, Daniel. The whole comment doesn't make any sense. It's just something you can heap on the quarterback more every time that you make a guy jump up in the air, that you're injuring him and putting his life in jeopardy. Like NFL football doesn't do that in general. Cincinnati has hope in the sense that Burrow's coming to town, but they got to deal with their set of problems too.
Namely Mike Brown.
Yeah, and Mid's plug is gone. Yeah, it's always fun to get rid of assholes in the chat room, isn't it? And Greedy It isn't that Dorsey has to go. Greedy, somebody has to determine whether Greedy can play football or not. And the coach has to really, the defensive coordinator, somebody has to have his ear. There's no leader on defense. There's nobody who's bending the young man's ear, telling him the right way to do things. And if you don't have that, you're not going to learn. The NFL is a completely different beast from college football. I mean, it is 180 different. It's faster. It's more physical. The strategy is of greater depth. The people are of equal athletic talent on either side of the ball, unlike college football. And you can't just turn it on and turn it off when you feel like it. It is an on all the time game. You need to have veterans telling a young man like Greedy Williams what he needs to do. Without that leader on the defensive squad, never going to happen. And everyone's going to look bad. All the rooks are going to look bad because they're not being taught. And it's not just by Steve Wilkes. There's so much teaching that goes on from teammates. We don't have that capability.
And position coaches.
And position coaches, right. It's there's so many, and again, Jeff and Bam is saying 10 defensive players caught on field in last game. How is it possible? And the answer is nobody's minding the store. Players are not paying attention. They may have a formation package. A player is supposed to go in. He wasn't paying attention. Who in the hell knows how it happens? But it's happened all year in the offensive sets, the defensive sets. It's happened, with the false starts. It's with the holding, with the missed blocking assignments. It's happened with drop passes. You heard Baker Mayfield had more drop passes. His percentage of completion is the most radically altered when you factor in dropped passes.
And tip passes that went for interceptions.
I mean, and you can say, well, Baker Mayfield, there's a problem because he's too short. But I'll tell you, it's penetration by the defense, because just ask Nick Chubb about where he was being contacted in the running game. It was 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, folks. That's the offensive line. The way offensive pass blocking works, so that I can remind each of you, in case you're in your Baker Mayfield hating frenzy, is that you form a pocket for the quarterback. But if there's pressure coming in up the middle, then the height of the quarterback does matter. But if you clear out the area with the pocket, or if you manage to keep your man out far enough away from the line of scrimmage, and you're actually contacting and blocking, the guy can't leave his feet. The reason we get so many batted passes is that the guys at the line of scrimmage are not engaging them. And not only do they get through, but they're not engaged. They can leave their feet and bat down passes. It's the offensive line. It's discouraging because fans don't understand the nuts and bolts of the game. I'm being asked an important question. What items will be packed in Freddie's getaway vehicle? The Guide to Fucking Your Own Relatives. That's a book that was written down where he comes from.
Incest for dummies.
Yeah. Somebody asked Freddie, it's like, what's the definition of incest? And he goes, I suppose coming into one's own. Yeah. God help us. God help us. And again, this is the famed cushion, Toby, that you're talking about. And we've seen it in years past with the Browns where they have this massive cushion. And it's no different than lining Jabril Peppers 3 miles off the line of scrimmage. If you feel that a player can't stay with somebody, maybe he's instructed to do that. But that doesn't say much for Greedy Williams, does it? But yeah, way too much of a cushion. Way too much of a cushion. And, that's part of the problem.
Is that a Drew Williams that?
And Mark, you still care about what happens. Well, I'll tell you a smarter thing to do. Turn to your family and your loved ones. Care as much as you can about them, because all the care in the world isn't going to change what happens for the Cleveland Browns. That's for damn sure, you know. And this is proof that he's the devil, because this guy can't kill him, you know. That's proof. You wanted proof that Haslam's the devil, I gave it to you. And it is. There's no cohesion, Rick. No cohesion whatsoever. And again, there has to be a voice. When a guy like Bitonio, who's the best offensive lineman we have, won't take sides and won't really lead by example, the communication between offensive linemen is just not there. Same thing is true on the defensive line. When there's no leadership, there's no glue. And that's what's missing. There's no glue anywhere in this organization, and it's really unfortunate. Hey, how you doing, little TYG? Yeah. Nice to hear from you. You know, chapter 1. She's only your cousin. Thank you, Daniel. Yes, that would be in the manual. No, actually, let me tell you, this is Freddie Kitchens. The manual is what you got to do in case your sister doesn't show up. All right.
Who is also your cousin, your grandmother, your aunt.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's all one happy family.
And your uncle is also your father, Bobby Joe Jim Bob.
Now, Kawaki said Max Kellerman insisted the Browns team was going to get white hot with the remaining 8 games. You know, the fact that Stephen A. was right about anything, he just says so much. Just the law of averages, you know? Stephen A. Smith, you know, predicts that he's going to take a shit, and he's right about that, you know? Yeah, he has to be right sometimes, you know? You know, I don't know. Did Peppers really have a great year for the New York Giants? I don't know. I don't follow the New York Giants. I know the New York Giants didn't have a great year, you know?
Hey, Kawaki, I think we could use some of those giant toads from Konosuba to eat the fucking Haslams.
Yeah. And, you know, I think Stephen read the same article, by the way, that I did. If you want to put a link, Stephen, into Jimmy Haslam saying that he is retaining Kitchens, or whether it is a reporter who's saying that he heard. The article I read said the reporter heard that Haslam was leaning toward keeping Kitchens before the game. All right. So before you jump out of your skin, little TYG, that's not necessarily what he said accurate. It may be the opinion of a reporter, right? So, you know, I don't think at this point, if it's decided, that anyone knows. You know, he's not joking, Roberto. I will find the article right now. Well, let's see if I can find it this way. It was on NFL.com site for a while. They may have taken it down. All right. Now, this is part of the Dogs by Nature site. I like to, and it was the NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. Says many in the organization hope and believe that Kitchens will make it to year 2 with the Browns. This is from Ian Rappaport. All right. NFL's Ian Rappaport, along with his colleague Tom Pelissero, have had conversations with a multitude of sources, quote unquote, as the NFL readies itself for the annual head coaching purge on Monday. The future of Browns coach Freddie Kitchens is undecided, although it appears the desired outcome for owner Jimmy Haslam is to keep him. A rough skid to end the season that includes a loss to the Bengals would be bad. But those with deep knowledge of the Browns point out a few facts. Quarterback Baker Mayfield and his injured group of wide receivers barely practiced this year, and winning 7 games, if it happens, which it didn't, was within the realm of expectations within the building. They understood many of the new players brought in do not have a history of winning, and that takes time. All right. So that is not a definitive report. That is an opinion. All right. So that's the way that goes down. So at least I can, so now you know the exact source. It was, and I thought on the halftime show, it was Ian Rappaport, and it was over at NFL.com.
As much of a silly fuck as Jimmy Haslam is, you can't look at the last 2 goddamn games and believe that there is any kind of future, a positive future, with Freddie Kitchens running your fucking football team.
No, you're not a normal, sane person, but you're not dealing with that. We've had an autistic guy in Randy Lerner. We had a dying man in Al Lerner. And then we had a wine connoisseur in the head office of Carmen Policy long after he had done anything worthwhile, long after the whole game of football had changed. You had Dwight Clark, may his soul rest in peace, nothing disrespectful about a person who's no longer with us. And God only knows.
Is Eddie DeBartolo finally out of prison?
Yeah. I mean, we've had and Holmgren and the whole lot of them. We've seen some real Lulus come and go in Cleveland. So
that's why I'd really like to see the city own the team, the fans own the fucking team. I mean, goddamn Packers have won Super Bowls that way.
Well, let me say this. I mean, the whole nature of hiring Mike Holmgren, when he said, "Oh no, I'm not going to be a coach. I'm a general manager. I'm not going to interfere. And my choice is Pat Shurmur, the zucchini. All right, and I'm going to go around like I always wanted to when I was a coach in a golf cart and point this and point that and point this and have no accountability, make a little more money for my family's well-being in the future. And, that would be like going to a fucking concert, like when Michael Jackson was alive, going to a Michael Jackson concert and Michael stepping up to the microphone and saying, "I want to thank everybody for coming, but I won't be singing or dancing tonight. I'll be reciting poetry." Now, why? I mean, Mike Holmgren not coaching. It's like Aunt Jemima's pancakes without her syrup. What the fuck? I mean, but who would hire somebody on the basis that, I'll come to your team and take your money, but I ain't going to coach. I ain't going to do what I do best. How do you hire someone like that? Ask the autistic guy. All right? Ask his dead father. Ask them all how they do something that stupid. Anything's up for grabs here. Who knows? I mean, we don't see anything that Freddie Kitchens has done, but we're not the ones who are pulling the trigger. Jimmy Haslam could be like Jerry Jones and just say, I know it's in him somewhere, by gum. Yeah. I've seen mystifying decisions go down over and over again. This would be nothing new. At any rate,
Well, I'm sure he has seen him consume mass quantities in the fucking lunchroom like a fucking conehead.
This may be the best comment yet. The Dolphins, who were trying to tank, ended up one game behind us. But, of course, that would tell you that the Dolphins can't even tank right. And they'll keep their head coach thinking that, we came on strong in the end.
Well, Fitzpatrick doesn't know how to fucking be a loser.
Hey, Peter.
He's going to play. He's going to try in every fucking game that he starts. Whether they win, whether he throws 9 interceptions, whatever, he's going to try to win the goddamn game.
Hey, how you doing, Chad? Nice to see you. Hope everything's going okay. I was glad to see that there's some positive news on your front. Hang with it, my buddy. Hang with it. There are some great things that can happen. All right. And Chad knows what we talked about. And yes, I do actually talk to some of my viewers off the air, and not as Mr. Moohead, but as me.
Yeah, Chad, hope your mom's doing better, man.
Yeah, that's the, we are a family here, first and foremost, Here's a commenter, a guy who comments on the show, Joshua McCall. Jimmy, be a good owner for once in your life. Fire this man because nobody respects him and he's trying to have a dick measuring contest. Yeah, pretty well covers it. And the only way you can shrivel that dick is by firing him. But again, the problem is, what if his dick and Jimmy's dick are inexorably tied together? So if you soften one dick, you soften another. Then you know what you have? A jump rope. Ooh-wee. Or, wait a minute. I have to take my headset off for this.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
This is my elephant impression. I haven't done this in such a... and the limp dick thing, maybe... All right. All right. These talents that I possess, God only knows where it comes from or where it might go.
And now that our ears are blown out.
Hey, how do you think the microphone feels?
The horn blows. How about the driver?
And you know what's going to happen? I already told you that, I'm seeing what people, look at this. Now we're down to hoping that the bad thing will happen to the Steelers. That will never happen. They will win, and they will be in the playoffs. Don't you get it? I hope he gets it too. What did McCaffrey do? He wasn't rushing for. He was 92 yards behind him to start the game. So I'm not sure what McCaffrey did in the game. So I can't tell you. Black Monday for some, I suppose. And if Freddie is retained,
McCaffrey had 26 yards rushing with a touchdown and 72 yards receiving.
So he didn't pass up Chubb. So maybe Chubb did get the rushing title at least, which would be nice for him because he's a good, solid player. The kind of guy you like to build an organization around, not decimate it around him like has been done this year.
I started Nick, and Nick had 41 yards rushing and 1 catch for 1 yard.
Yeah. So at any rate, I'm done talking. It's been 48 minutes, and this ended the way it began for me. And I'm going to be back again tomorrow with the New Year's show, in essence, the Auld Lang Syne show of 2019. And we'll talk about the big picture tomorrow at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Thanks so much for tuning in. Sorry, fans. You know how I felt about this for the last God knows how many weeks, and it didn't get any better. It rarely does. Now let's buckle our seatbelts and see what happens in the midst of this accident. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you Monday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.